Okay, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Accommodation Show. This week, I'm joined once again by the incredible Brad Langton. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's a real pleasure to have you once again. We did this about a year ago. You are the CEO of National Media. You guys put on all sorts of events and conferences. And there's one which is coming up, which is quite close to my heart and to the Accommodation Show, which is No Vacancy, which is coming up at the end of August, at the beginning of September. I'm very excited for it.
I share your excitement. It's one of my favorites.
And of course, we're getting closer to the time, so I take it that you guys are absolutely under the pump and incredibly busy, right?
Yeah, there's quite a large team that work on the event, but I'd say smooth sailing is always the projection on the outside, and under the hood is, what more can we bring to the event and everyone that makes their time commitment to it. So, the clock doesn't stop, I guess, in the 4 weeks leading in, which is where we sit today.
That's an interesting one, actually, because I just came off the back of running my own event, and you kind of put some parameters around what you'd like to achieve, and then you kind of strive towards that, and then you're like, oh, I've already pulled this all off. What else can I do? Is that kind of where you guys are at?
Look, I think coming into the 5th or 6th edition of the event, we've got a pretty good backbone and framework of what the event looks like and feels like. And I think the challenges are, how do you keep it fresh and relevant? And, why should someone attend again? If last year it was brilliant, that's easy. If last year they went, I'm not sure I got much out of that, then how do you convince that person to invest their time to come again? So the team's always looking at that. How can we do that in content, in the show floor activations, in events that sit around No Vacancy? And there's some exciting new stuff to hopefully pique that interest this year.
Let's rewind a bit, because I do want to talk about that as to what to expect and how do you keep things fresh and what's relevant to the industry at the moment. But can you just do a brief introduction for those that do not know who Brad Langton is and what it is that is No Vacancy?
Well, I guess the me part's not too important, but I've been on the journey of bringing this event to life and market and getting to know and build a great friendship network, and I feel part of the industry and the community of what's a brilliant sector in hotel and accommodation. And I use the broader term because it's an accommodation industry. No Vacancy was the brainchild of hundreds of conversations with small operators and large revenue managers and GMs and owners. And at the end of the day, as an industry, there's so much purchasing power and so much purchasing responsibility. There's so much technological change, and then there's this overlaying demand and expectation from guests, which means you've got to be at the forefront of what's happening in the room and the touch points after. So there was nowhere for hotel and accommodation leaders, professionals, owners to come together and kind of learn best practice, discover technology, to review their current suppliers and say, should I be looking at other options right now? And that was where No Vacancy kind of evolved from. And it's something that we do as a business across lots of sectors, but this one particularly, when you look at, say, a hotel, plenty of opportunity, but busy days. I'm dealing with guest challenges, the exec chef's sick and I've got a banquet tonight, the plumbing's out on room 32. All these things are happening every day with a complaining set of guest issues, and knocking on the door is, a beverage manufacturer saying, we've got a new vanilla flavour, and the GM's going, great, I've got real problems. And so, giving those guys the opportunity to come and spend 2 days on their terms to see all the suppliers they want to or not was the premise, and it's evolved and worked really well.
Yeah, and I really love that. It's one of those ones where you can do one trip and you can kind of meet everybody in one place rather than having to do multiple meetings over multiple days, and kind of it all gets lost in the wash and a year's gone by and you haven't managed to make a significant difference, or each project has to be compartmentalized. So if we are going to change the way different suppliers, then it takes quite a while to figure it out. Whilst if they're in one room, then we can go and talk to them. And or even with suppliers that we're already working with, right? Sometimes we don't have the chance to actually meet them face to face and actually see the person that's behind the screen or behind the AI.
It is, and I think, the power of face-to-face and connection is something that the accommodation industry lives by. You come for an experience, those touch points are memorable. I think when you apply that to how we work and deal with each other, whether it's our suppliers in technology or core products and services, it's really, really key. So,
yeah. So interesting. So I'm going to come back to talking about a little bit about the fact that this is the second event since COVID, or is it the third? We had one in COVID, but anyhow, this is kind of the second one back.
kind of the third, one during on the outskirt, one fresh last year when we've all kind of forgotten it and things are rebounding, and then I feel like there's a stability. I'm not saying market forces aren't playing different factors, but there's a stability back to, remember when it was COVID. So I feel like, let's call it 2.5.
Yeah, that's right. Because I was washed up in the half of the one a couple of years ago where I didn't actually make it. That was a challenge. That was fun, wasn't it?
It was very fun. I think we had 50 exhibitors who were stuck in Victoria 4 days before the event as the border closed, and maybe 15 or 20 speakers as well. So we talked earlier about the challenges of event planning, and I think when you're running a trade show that's the size of 5 football fields with 120 speakers and 300 exhibitors, and across the exhibiting companies there's another 800 exhibit staff. There were some challenges, but the industry came together, and those that couldn't, I think you patched in virtually. So technology's helped us evolve a lot through COVID, and I think we're all the better for it. But the face-to-face element still happened for most.
And that's kind of interesting as well, because I remember at the time you mobilized quite quickly and you put a lot of energy into figuring out solutions to make sure that it's working. You're going to deliver the event that you had promised, always get us close to and look after the people around you. And I think there was a lot of that kind of looking after each other to make sure that it can happen. And that would always go both ways, especially when you're under a lot of pressure, and the pressure would have been on you. And that's kind of an interesting one, a nice segue to where I kind of wanted to go, which is about innovation, bringing things to the community. And quite often when we go to events, it can be we can have different interpretations of what we're getting out of it. Sometimes we get a lot out of it, sometimes we get less out of it, sometimes we find it's relevant, sometimes we don't find it so relevant, sometimes there's not the supplies that we want to see there, and that sort of thing. And you as an organizer, you're never going to get it right for everybody because it's such a disparate group of people that are coming to visit. But I'd love to kind of understand where you've gone to from, I guess, that that half conference to last year to this year, because I know that your team has changed and evolved a bit since then. And there's new ideas that are coming forward. So I'd love you to talk to about where you guys, what you expect kind of for this event, and maybe talk to some of those reasons why they re-establish the value of why people should come this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right that everyone's time is precious. If you're an owner operator doing everything yourself, it's really hard to get away from your property. That doesn't change whether you're in a GM or an owner's role of a chain hotel or an independent. So, we're very cautious of that. I think that's why the model for us is, one, it's free to attend. When you attend a ticketed paid event, for a day or two, you really need to stay for a day or two, to get your value or your perceived value. So, we kind of have the mantra of come for an hour or come for 2 days as it suits. I think additionally, come for one session or come to 17 sessions across 5 theatres should you choose. Visit one exhibitor or visit 300. I mean, there's an openness about that lets our attendees come on their terms, and so that's really important. But I think bringing new value as well has been important. So the team has evolved. We brought in a head of content that's spent a lot more time, to be honest, than I have traditionally, speaking to people in all those different roles understand what are their real pain points so that we can create a program that helps them solve them, or at least connects them with thoughts and ideas to go on that journey. And I know you're involved in the program from delivering value, and I may be misquoting, but there's some stuff around AI and digital and all those kinds of things, and we're all talking about them. I mean, your social feeds and your inbox and websites are full of all of those things, but how do you bring it down to nuts and bolts and apply it to some practical, tactical takeaways I can use in my accommodation property today? Is it writing welcome notes with ChatGTP? Are there plugins that can do things around our photos for our property? There's a million things that can be happening, but where do I start? And so, I think the team's done a great job there, and also understanding, from a property operating and optimization perspective, what are the challenges today? And I think, energy costs are rising. So sustainability is, I don't want to say it's a buzzword, but it's a word used a lot. But what does that mean? Is it about doing the right thing to meet your customers' demands because they want it, they want to stay at sustainable properties? Or is it actually about doing the right thing for the environment while running a more efficient, cost-effective and smoother operating property? And so not just is there solutions for that on the expo floor, but there's also content, an entire day now dedicated to talking about that, and having real hoteliers from all those different size areas talk about what they've done, where they've had wins, where they tripped over, what the challenges were, and everything in between.
Yeah, and look, it just creates such a great environment to network as well, right? It's not only taking in the information, because at the end of the day, if we're going to be honest, a lot of information is out there on YouTube or on the internet or through interviews on the accommodation show. But the value of actually going and seeing someone talk and potentially going up to them afterwards and having a bit of a chat about our own circumstance, our own situation, and applying it in real life, for me, it's been invaluable. You have a chat, then you add them on LinkedIn and you go, all right, cool, I've got this problem. Who do I know who's best suited to potentially resolving that? And that kind of creates more depth to your business in the long run. It's actually through those connections that you make, and I guess surrounding yourself with people that are smarter than you in a lot of cases.
It is, and I think if you look at examples like sustainability, big word, lots of areas around it, but when was the last time you were able to walk up to the head of sustainability for a major chain or a casino group? And you might think, well, we don't have the budget to do what they're doing, but you don't know that the small projects they've implemented, they've seen massive change with. That one supplier they can connect you with or suggest you speak with, they're the things that can really help improve. Lots of micro steps that can to make a big impact. So, we're big on bringing that together in the show, and that might be exhibitors and suppliers, it might be a speaker, it might be someone sitting next to you in a session that's nodding their head. All those things happen at No Vacancy, which is really exciting.
Yeah, and don't, if you do attend, don't be afraid to go up and talk to people. They're going to be, they're there to actually to help. They're there because they want to impart their knowledge on other people. They're not doing it generally as a vested interest to try to make money or whatever. They're just doing it saying, hey, these are my experiences, and they're also doing it so that they can get feedback and learn along their journey. So that's why they encourage the conversations, because then they're going to improve within their own business and their own lives. So you're never going to get a speaker turn around to you and say, oh, look, I don't have time or whatever. It doesn't matter what size you are, they'll want to have a chat with you.
I think the people sitting around you too, I mean, I'm going to say this out loud, so we'll be held to the commitment, but one of the initiatives of the new and evolving team here working on No Vacancy was, before every session, we're going to have the moderator or the speaker say, guys, for the next 3 minutes, turn to a person in front of you, behind you, around you that you don't know, and understand why they're sitting there and what they do. Because there might be something that comes out of that. Quite often the person sitting next to you is already on their journey or is already having successes. And so, speakers are always there, but also the people around that live in the same role with the same challenges every day might be 2 steps ahead of you, or reverse, might be 2 steps behind you, and it's that idea or suggestion that you've lived through. So I've said it now, so I hope that happens in every session, in every theatre across the 2 days, which is, 80 or 100 sessions. But, they're the little things that I think can make a difference. And, we talked about networking before, but that's knowledge sharing, and it happens when you get to connect with people you don't know, and that's always exciting.
And what about, let's just dive into this a little bit further. I personally, Brad, and you won't believe this, I really struggle with networking when it's face to face. I can do it all day long on Zoom, online. When it comes to face, I don't know what it is, but I get kind of almost nervous, or someone says, "Hey, what do you do?" And I kind of crumble, and I'm like, how can I not know what I do? If I'm on stage presenting to 1,000 people, no issues whatsoever. But when it's that one-on-one interaction, I find it actually a little bit more confronting. Now I've kind of perfected my elevator pitch, so I know what those stepping stones are. So, I mean, of course, you'll facilitate those 3-minute sessions, which is really makes it a lot easier, because then you've been set up for success. If that makes you've set the parameters around networking. What are your views for people that just don't feel that comfortable to talk to people around them? What would you suggest they do?
Look, I would never, force anyone to do something they're not comfortable with, but I think, the value you get, you just got to push yourself to do those things. And the reality is that the hardest part's the first step. It's the, hey, I'm Brad, what do you do? Where are you from? What kind of property have you got? It's having a couple of simple questions that starts a conversation. I think once you're engaged, I think it flows from there. I've got a small motor in the northern coast of New South Wales. Oh, great. How long have you had that? All of a sudden a conversation ensues, and you don't know where that goes. So, what brought you to this session? Oh, well, we're struggling with this. Actually, so are we. It's just having a couple of questions in mind that really, break the ice. Everyone in the room are like people. Whether you're running the smallest property or the largest, whether you're a GM or an owner, you've all got a touch point, with a common goal, which is, attracting bookings, looking after guests so they come back, and running a commercial business. So I think there's something exciting about that, where you can sit next to people of all different walks of life, cultures, nationalities, and actually all share this really connected space and not know the people sitting around you. So, I'd encourage everyone to have a couple of those questions lined up, which can be simply about a property, or, where are you based, or what brings you to this session. And hopefully what I've suggested is that it rolls on from there.
Yeah, and look, I love it, and I think that being prepared is super useful. There's a couple of tips that I have as well. Is one, to have a bit of a goal as to why you're there. So of course you've got all the education, you're meeting the suppliers, and if you are choosing to network, I think business cards is a great way to sort of break the ice. Have you got a card, whatever? But say, you want to build a network and community, and one of the ways to do that is to be connected with them on one of the social platforms, so you can follow their journey. I'd love to follow your journey. Can I follow you on LinkedIn? Yeah, absolutely. And that way you've actually built up a network, and it's got something tangible of value in the long run, and you can see what that person is doing, and they can see what you're doing, and now you're connected. Not only do you see them on LinkedIn, but now you've got that face-to-face connection. Another tip, Brad, I don't know if you know this one. We did a 5-day AI challenge. We did the second one. And on the second one, and I'm kind of revealing the secret here, is we actually did role-playing in customer service. So you sit there with the bot, just kind of going, all right, I've got an angry customer who's got this problem, and this is my suggested response to the particular problem. What do you think? And then the AI turns around and says, yeah, that's okay, but you got this part wrong. You weren't quite empathetic enough. You could have dealt with it in a much better way. And then it kind of gives you a suggested answer. You can do that for networking as well, and just say, hey, I'm about to go to a conference called No Vacancy. My business is about X, Y, and Z. I feel really uncomfortable networking. What would you suggest in terms of my opening lines? It'll give you 20 ideas that you can kind of run with. So
there you go. You're thinking more tech folks, and I was like, write a few questions down, have them in your head. But there you go. There's some prompts that can help.
Exactly, you're right. It's all there. And I wasn't setting that up either. I just thought of that on the fly. Cool. Okay, so I really wanted to cover off on one last part, which I think is around the industry and challenges. A few years ago, there was huge value in getting together because we were talking about COVID and its impacts and how it's scary, and we need to come together to potentially find solutions. Then last year was more about this sort of getting back to normal, or what it was actually the new normal. Do I remember that? The new normal, and adjusting to that. Now we're past the new normal and we're back to business as usual from a few years ago, but now we've got new challenges, being inflation, but also demand potentially starting to drop out. So prices have gone up of everything, of our staff, our labor, food, and then electricity, everything. And then you've got demand, which is looking really soft, and it's looking like it's going in the wrong direction, especially in regional areas. Is there anything that we're doing in the conference to address that? Is there, is that an important part of getting together?
Yeah, there's lots. I think there's so many different angles and conversations. There's different markets and property types that are all impacted in different ways. So it's hard to give kind of a generic answer to it. But I think, we see some big challenges around staffing, whether that's cost of staffing or ability to attract staff. That hasn't gone away. There's been some efforts, but that's still a challenge. And there's a lot of technology that's supporting that. I was just on a call recently with I'm going to say cool, holograph-based piece of technology for accommodation. It's actually think of a photo booth size holograph box. So you can have one agent sitting at night shift and actually running 20 properties and having a full conversation from a studio-like setting with a guest. There are lots of applications for things like that. So, who would have thought one person could run 20 properties at a night shift? Or even in the day as a support staff when front desk staff, are not enough in supply. So you've got things like that. There's other cool things like, needing housekeeping. There's been challenges around that, and I've seen 3 or 4 different versions of robots now that, we all know what a Roomba is in our house. Well, bigger versions that come out at night, the lift's open, they drive in, they vacuum all the halls, they feed back data around dust and all these different things, like really cool technologies. And then there's a lot of simpler things as well. So, it's not all about big fancy investments in big technology. A lot of knowledge sharing around what are people doing around rates and ADR, how they're attracting more guests. And, there's lots of insight and knowledge to be shared from those that are winning, who haven't suffered as much from the softness of the market or have chased demand and had wins. And that's about lots of those panel sessions. And as I said to you, we've got a new content team that have spent lots of time speaking with people and going, great, can you come to the table and share that? And I think a fortunate thing is this industry is very open and sharing, because if I run a small motor in Mackay, I'm not competing with a 4-star business hotel in Sydney CBD. And so, there's a lot of openness in that. So I'm really interested to see what comes of that. We will never be able to address all of the challenges, but I'd like to think that when you bring the largest gathering of the greatest minds that are all experiencing this together, with hopefully all the vendors and solution providers that do, or at least think they can help, there's got to be some benefit there, whether it's 1% of what you need or 150%. You don't know till you're there, I guess.
Yeah. And look, by the way, I'm super excited. As soon as you're talking about some of these things, like, oh yeah, wouldn't that be cool? And it's that innovation, it's those ideas that kind of come through, and you're going to apply them in different ways to your own business. Myself, I think last time I came, I only managed to come for the one day. This time I'm coming for the full experience plus some. So I'm going to make a whole weekend of it in Sydney, because it is on Thursday, Friday. So then you get the whole weekend as well to stay, which is great. So thank you very much for that. Tell us dates, times, how to get involved.
Dates and times, so it's 31st of August, 1st September is a Thursday, Friday, as you've noted. 10 till 5 each day. The Friday we actually have got a women in accommodation breakfast that starts at, I think, 8 o'clock. I think there's still tickets available for that, but that's about sharing stories and bringing together and making sure that equality is an important part of driving the industry forward, and lots of great examples of that happening far and wide. And lots of other events happening in and around No Vacancy as well. There's, as I said, the teams, there's a young leaders forum happening. There's happy hour drinks and networking connections happening around the floor on both days from different vendors. Lots of new things to bring a bit of freshness to what lots of people know and love, and hopefully encourage some people to commit their time to come and join us this year.
Beautiful. So, folks, if you've not been to No Vacancy, it is Australia's largest conference in the space. So make sure you go, check it out, engage with people, have a conversation, meet the vendors, talk to the panelists, talk to people around you. You will learn a lot about yourself and a lot about your business and how you can move things forward. I will be there both days, as well as I imagine Brad will be there. Look, thank you so much for joining us and for giving us some more insights and for encouraging people to take part in these kind of events. I know that it's tricky because being a free event as well, it's not necessarily that you're here to kind of go, hey, spend your money with me. It's literally like, come, I've created this thing, which I think you're going to get huge value from. So I really appreciate your time, Brad. It's incredibly valuable. And thanks for putting on the event.
It's a pleasure, and mate, I look forward to not just welcoming you, but anyone that's got a passion or is vested in this industry, because it's a great one, and it's not going anywhere soon.
Beautiful. All right, awesome. Have a great day, and I'll see you in a few weeks.
Thanks, mate.
Cheers.